And welcome to another Energy Facts Chats with me, JP Warren. We got my brother from California, Mike Umbro, tuning in. And it
Howdy.
is howdy. It is bad hair day over here, so that is why we are repping our hats today. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'm rocking my the first batch of Connection Crew. And I'll probably turn around here a little bit. Mike, what are you rocking today?
I got my my Tulsa Hurricanes right here, baby.
That's what we're talking about. Speaking of hurricanes, let's talk about what's happening today on energy. You like that segue?
I like that.
That was pretty. That was all right. I could do better, but that was good.
Yeah.
First off, I want to thank everyone out there for tuning in. If you're just joining, this is your first episode of Energy Facts Chats. This is myself, JP Warren, out of Houston. Mike Umbro's out of Cali, San Diego. Is that right?
That's right.
Living the dream.
Right.
However,
we're
living the reality. It's not we're living the dream. We're living the realities of everything. So the whole goal of Energy Facts Chats is kind of bridge energy expectations with stuff that's going on, hitting the headlines, and the realities of that and how it's affecting the consumer, the environment, and just kind of what it's going to look like if things are implemented. And again, Mike and our energy maximists, we love all forms of energy, but we like a practical, pragmatic approach to it versus jumping off into the deep end without checking the water temperature or depth.
There you go.
You like that?
I do like that.
Okay, well,
great.
So you can find us again YouTube, Energy Fact Chats, or find us on any podcast hosting platform. And Mike, I think we're about to get listed on Apple. I think Apple I think Apple takes about 2 weeks to get listed. So I think it's going to happen soon. So we appreciate everyone tuning in, and we just started this. This is probably our 14th, 15th episode, and we are just getting started with this. So thank you all. So Mike, today, I think something that we touched about in our last episode that we talked about that we want to discuss more is let's kind of give a 30,000 foot view, and then let's kind of dial into each of these discussion points. And the topic is the electrification of fleets of big trucks, big 18-wheelers, semis, and Mike, I guess start us off. Kind of what's going on and where are we at today?
So we often talk about DC policy mirroring Sacramento policy, and what we've had over the past 3-4 weeks, whenever the announcement came through that the Biden administration basically gave the green light to California to roll out this ban on internal combustion engines for
did that need a federal support for that ban?
I'm a little unclear on why the federal government had to weigh in on it. I don't know that it needed it because we do a lot of things in California on our own and out in front of other folks on the environmental progress side of the house. So it seems like it was maybe more of a, hey, we also support this type of thing rather than you have to get the federal government's approval to do it. But there have been over the years complaints. I think Trump had some complaints over California setting mileage standards for vehicles, and the EPA under Trump came and kind of battled against that in California. So I think when it comes to involving the EPA, which is a federal agency,
it's good.
You want that alignment. So that's basically what the Biden administration said is, hey, yes, California, you can ban these engines.
And banning. Currently, the majority of goods and materials move throughout the states, coming in from the port of LA. Is that correct?
LA and Long Beach, yeah. So LA and Long Beach,
it's in
40% of the nation's imports.
Yeah, so pretty much it's the ports are relying on diesel powered vehicles, engines, and actually to move goods from the ports to, I guess, where they get distributed. That's usually through diesel powered engines. And so now now what's going on is California is essentially banning diesel powered engines at the port and also moving goods, loading on trucks and moving the trucks, correct?
Yeah. And now ultimately banning the sale of new internal combustion engines or diesel engines for all trucks in California by 2035.
Okay, let's put a pin in that. Let's just talk about, I guess, the big rigs, and let's talk about the port, what that means, and then let's kind of dial back into, I guess, the everyday consumer, which is what we are.
Right.
And that's actually what who this is for. This is not for the energy experts. This is not for the people in it. This is for the everyday consumers. Okay.
Right.
So that's going on. So when is this going to taking place, and when is this occurring? What's the timeline?
So they're phasing it out in 2035. There no more sales of internal combustion engines in 2035 in the state of California.
Okay. All right. So what I guess what I'm let's start off this let's continue this conversation. So what
Oh,
is
I'm
this?
sorry. Diesel trucks get 20. Big rigs are 2036. Excuse me.
Okay.
It's 1 year later, just so we have this
Okay.
accurately. Yes,
Yeah, because
2036.
one
Yes.
thing that I've learned to get people chiming in is be a little bit inaccurate with something.
Then
And then next thing you know,
they'll make a
oh yeah,
comment. You're off
oh
by
yeah.
12 months,
And all I say is
13
thanks for
years in the
watching. Thanks
future.
for watching.
Right.
So okay,
Right.
so what is this? Okay, why is this a bad thing? I mean, why would this be viewed as potentially negative? We're talking about electrifying these vehicles that move goods around. Isn't that a good? Wouldn't that be a good thing?
Well, that's how it's presented. So California has the California Air Resources Board, which studies emissions, studies all sectors in California, and sets guidelines.
Okay.
So I think the concern that I've read about and heard about is when you've got trucking fleets. Not only do you have big fleets, but you've got a lot of independent contractors. One guy or one
Yeah.
woman with a rig that runs product, and that's how they support their family is running that rig and moving product around the state and around all the states, going in and out interstate and going in and out of California. So there's multiple concerns from independent contractors that say, hey, how am I going to afford an electric vehicle big rig, which might cost $200,000 more than a diesel rig?
And that's
So there's
and the price is so much more because of what?
the battery. It's no different than our internal combustion engines as passenger vehicles versus the average new EV is over $60,000 out the
So
door.
that so that's where I want to stop you at, just so people that kind of diving into this, the average electric vehicle is, as you said, is northern above $60,000, which is a pretty big chunk of change more than the average used vehicle or even a new vehicle that's out there.
Right. Right.
Okay,
And
all
so
right,
if you look up, so electric semi trucks are $400 to $500,000.
okay. So now we're talking about $600,000 to $700,000 for an EV rig, something
Right.
like that.
Well, no. That's how much they're $400 to $500,000, and a new diesel rig is going to cost half that or
Yeah. Okay.
less,
All right. All right.
$100 to $150,000.
Okay, so why? So okay, let's take away the ability to, I guess, buy these trucks for the small independents and all that stuff. Let's look at the I guess the grand scheme of things. All right,
Mhm.
so we're talking about electric big rigs. Let's just call them big rigs
Yeah.
for now because that's
Yeah.
kind of what they are. Um, let's talk about performance. What's some of the performance concerns when it comes to an all electric fleet versus a diesel powered fleet? And we kind of touched on this in our last episode, but I want to get in this a little bit more.
From a hauling perspective with diesel or natural gas, the performance. You're going to get a certain amount of miles out of that rig to get to your destination. You're going to have the infrastructure wherever you go to refuel, and those are pretty known. We're seeing studies, for example, just on electric passenger vehicles where the range advertisements are not what you actually get. In other words,
Yeah.
when you're driving typically an internal combustion engine, when you're driving at a cruising speed of 75 miles an hour, you're getting optimal performance you're getting highway miles, you're getting good mileage out of that internal combustion engine. It's actually the opposite for an electric vehicle. Electric engines do really well in slow speeds, traffic, city
City
settings. You can
environments.
crawl around for a long time. But when you're cruising 75 miles an hour with the air conditioning cranked up in the middle of the desert because it's 100 degrees and you're just jamming up and down grades, electric vehicles don't perform so well. So that is a major, I would call it a total unknown. We don't have a data set of electric vehicle truck fleets that are hauling significant amounts of cargo around the freeways of Southern California. That
So,
data just doesn't exist outside of a modeled environment.
So my question is before getting this more. I mean, so without these studies, without this data being available and present, and kind of looking at this, okay, it's just like anything. It's just like any business or anything that you kind of start opening. I mean, if you're going in blind without having any, that's actually a bad analogy, because business it just affects me personally. You know what I mean? However, if there's no data behind kind of the performance and the realities of this, such as charging stations, okay.
Right.
Number two, how long does it take to charge one of these rigs?
Yeah.
I know a car. I'm serious. I know a car is probably
Yeah.
what, an average 30 to 40 minutes for a full charge.
At
And that's
least that's what they
that's a
advertise.
that's a
Yeah.
supercharger though.
That's at the
Okay.
level 3 or whatever it is. Yeah.
So number one, you're talking about a higher cost of a vehicle. Number two, there's probably a slower movement of goods across California, including, and if it spreads out the nation, right?
Right. Right.
And we can kind of get into the cost to fuel one of these things up or charge one of these things up, which is I guess that's dependent on, I guess, the electricity that's available at the moment in the grid.
Electricity rates, right? Which is a
Okay.
big unknown variable in California and everywhere where the electricity market is going.
So if I'm looking to come in and kind of set up shop in California right now, and I'm hauling goods around the state and the country, this would be a very interesting exercise to do. What does it look like if I wanted to open up shop today versus with these requirements? I mean, you have to factor in the cost of the truck. You have to factor in, okay, well, now let's talk about timing to refuel these or to recharge these EVs. Let's talk about the weight of these. So the weight is tremendously, substantially more.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Absolutely. The weight of an electric big rig versus the weight of a diesel rig is probably 3 to 4 times empty, you know.
And I also saw that there's I read a headline again. This is that some insurance companies are actually advising people not to park their EVs in not historic, but in parking garages, just because the weight of the EVs, I guess, wasn't factored in when they were designing and building the parking structures.
Right, right. No, yeah, your roads aren't built for this. Your parking structures aren't built for this. There's an interesting TikTok. Maybe we can post it in the links. But I saw a TikTok of one professional testifying in front of Congress in DC, and he said, "Let's just set the stage for what this means." He was talking about a manufacturing plant in Illinois, I think, and the plant itself drew 2 megawatts of power off the grid.
I think,
and he goes in and he says, "Look, if you want us to convert all of our hauling fleet to electric, we all of a sudden need like 30 megawatts of power." And he said the state interconnect office, the request, they like laughed at him and said, "Is this a joke? Like your draw right now is 2 megawatts to manufacture all your products, and now you're saying you need 15 times the power to electrify your fleet." And I think if you look at a state like California, the interconnection process to get power to your facility, to get power turned on, there's bills being proposed in Sacramento right now to force Pacific Gas and Electric, SoCal Gas, to expedite the time it takes to connect even just your house. You could build a grandmother flat in the back of your house, and you could be waiting for interconnect power to that flat for years. Okay.
Really?
So now yes, it's a major problem. So now you're talking about wherever your distribution center is. And of course, there's massive warehouse centers out in the city of industry in California, Inland Empire, massive warehouses. But now you're going to be saying, "Hey, I've got this 2 megawatt demand on my warehouse that I've interconnected already. I've got set up. Hey, now I need to 15x that, California Independent System Operator, or PG&E. Can you get me the power?" And they're going to say, "Yeah, take a ticket, get in line. It's going to take us 3 to 5 years to get power out to you in that amount." And that's a very real situation.
Well, it's extremely frustrating, I guess, is the word that I could use for this, is these promises, these policies, these mandates that are coming out without the energy realities to handle this. Again, whether it's weight loads for bridges, weight loads for
Right.
parking garages, whether it's charging stations. It's something like, I think it's some astronomical amount to get to this marketing ploy of this net zero thing. It's like 14 trillion, and we've already invested like 7 trillion, only gotten 4% increase of power generation from renewables. So not only is it the capital, the infrastructure cost,
Yeah.
it's also okay. So let's pretend everything's electric, the EVs now and all that stuff.
Right.
That takes rare earth minerals, and that
Right.
doesn't come from the States. That comes from other countries such as China, Africa, places like that. And so right now, there's so many variables out there, such as the cost for rare earth minerals, the supply of rare earth minerals. I mean, what happens if we upset one of these nations that supplies it to us? Is that going to create some sort of there's just so much, whether the charging infrastructure, the weight of these things, the rare earth minerals, the electricity, I guess, capability of the grid. I mean, where's the grid at right now? If, let's say, if this was 2036 today, where's the grid at, and its ability to handle charging all these big rigs?
Well, the grid is short power in California through 2026, so we're already short power.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely. That's why Gavin Newsom kept Diablo Canyon online, because we would have certain blackouts if they had gone through with shutting down that nuclear facility, our 10% of the state's baseload. So there's big problems with electrifying everything without having the capacity. And like I said, that interconnect issue goes both ways, whether you're trying to get more capacity to your facility and get more electricity to your facility connected. Also, generation facilities, new projects like us, as we're trying to get interconnect for our project, that's a multi-year study. That's a multi-year process. So there's a big unknown in terms of how we can meet that demand for electricity when we electrify not only the big rigs, but we also can't forget, by 2035, there's no more internal combustion sales for passenger vehicles. So you're literally trying to electrify the entire transportation fleet, 20 million plus vehicles, by 12 years from now, 13 years from now.
But isn't, okay, let me ask you, let me play this card. Isn't that a good thing, though? Wouldn't that be good for the environment?
Potentially. It's not good for the environment if you can't get your goods. It's not good for the environment if everybody starts rioting because they can't get their eggs or their groceries. It's not good for the...
we just saw an egg price spike that was kind of ridiculous. I mean, it's interesting how society kind of looks at, whether it was COVID and everyone got the toilet paper, whether it's California, people going to get eggs and finding it. It's interesting to see kind of the little blurps in, I guess, the radar when it comes to consumer goods and the price, I guess, vulnerability to small market changes.
Yeah, and where are all these spent batteries going to go? Batteries are not infinite, right? You're going to have a huge amount of battery waste, and you hear people say, well, we're going to have battery recycling and these plants are being developed. But all of these situations are built on unproven technology, unproven big systems scaled up to handle all this. None of it's proven yet. So I think it could be very detrimental to the environment. And oh, by the way, we're not even having a conversation about sustainability. Is it sustainable for 40% of the nation's goods to come through one port complex?
What do you think? Okay,
I would argue no.
Let me ask you a question. What would be some of the effects, potential effects, that you can kind of, I guess, take a guess at what could happen to the port of LA, Long Beach, and all that?
I think it's going to shrink. I think you already saw when they had the supply chain backup and the union was all frustrated and everything kind of shut down at the port of LA and Long Beach. You saw cargoes being rerouted to Georgia ports, to Florida ports, to New York, New Jersey ports. So there's been some loss of shipping volumes, which I would again argue is a good thing. We don't need the port of LA and Long Beach to be maxed out every day. I think it's fine. Let's talk about shrinking the port. Let's talk about shrinking the footprint there. And by the way, while we're talking about electrifying all the movement of goods, once it finally gets on shore, we're not even having a discussion about the ships that are bringing all of this in and the amount of pollution that is coming out of tankers and cargo ships. And the fact that the port of LA and Long Beach is the largest source of pollution in Southern California, more than all of our vehicles combined. That's on the South Coast Air Quality Management District's website. Anybody can look that up. First thing it says is the port is the largest source of pollution. So we're seeing these policies trying to fix the emissions of moving the goods, but we're not looking at the root problem, which is we're making it all somewhere else. We're shipping it all here on these nasty, huge tankers and cargoes. And then, we're going to try to take away the piece of emissions that just floats through the freeways. That's what we're addressing. And while we do it, we don't know if it's going to work, and it's going to make everything way more expensive for everybody. So there's not a lot of benefits here.
So when again, I mean, whenever I hear, EV batteries and all that stuff, I've started to stop thinking about, the EV batteries. I started thinking of that industry as a mining industry, because that's what it is. They're mining rare earth minerals. I'm curious to I'm sure the data is out there somewhere, but I'm kind of curious to see kind of what the emission scope it is when it comes to these mining operations. I mean, what are we costing the environment for this push towards electrification? What are we costing the environment in other countries towards this, I guess, these mandates to get everything electrified?
Yeah, it's a huge cost. And then when you look at, we're electrifying the big rig fleet. What does that mean in California? That means they're going to be charging at night when they're moving less product. During the day, they're going to be moving around. So at night, they're going to be charging on a natural gas fired grid. So why are we not just putting gas engines in here?
Well, hold on. I mean, I agree with you, but I actually just saw an article last week or 2 weeks ago that even today, California is recommending, not just in California, but they're recommending people to not charge at night. They're recommending people to charge either, number one, on your way to work, or when you're at work, go to one of these strip centers and all that stuff, wherever these chargers are. So I don't even think charging at night will be an option, because you're not going to have the wind or the solar generating that. You're right. You're just relying on natural gas, but not only that, but also it's all the risk factors too of leaving a car charging overnight. There's been fires popping up that cost a lot of resources to put out, unfortunately. But that's the thing. You're saying charge it at night. Again, that's if everything was going smoothly.
Yeah.
I just saw something where they're advising people not to charge at night.
Right. And I think what's one of the big issues is the oil and gas industry is failing to identify this opportunity and make the most of it. We have on the East Coast, you've got Toby Rice, you've got Nick DeUlius, you've got more natural gas producers that are saying, hey, unleash the U.S. shale gas. This is a massive resource. It's clean burning. You eliminate 90 to 95% of your particulate matter versus a diesel engine when you go to a natural gas engine.
That's clean energy.
That's huge. That's the pollution that these air resources boards are identifying with diesel engines. Natural gas eliminates almost all of that. It reduces greenhouse gas emissions by 20-30%. So what we're missing is a voice out here on the West Coast, and I would argue across the country, because it just kind of stays on the East Coast and the Marcellus and Appalachia, that mantra of let's unleash this gas. But I'm wearing my TU hat, T. Boone Pickens. When I was doing my master's at Tulsa, we heard a lot about the Pickens plan. And part of the Pickens plan was converting all the heavy hauling to natural gas, to CNG, compressed natural gas engines, because we have an abundance of natural gas and it takes out so many of these environmental problems with diesel engines. And sadly, he passed away. The plan, his wind portion of the plan kind of went belly up, but it's still a valid point today. In my neighborhood, all of the garbage trucks are CNG. I smell nothing in terms of diesel, particulate matter, soot. You don't smell a diesel engine when they pick up the trash cans in my neighborhood, because it's clean burning natural gas.
Well, why are we hopping over this source of a fuel? Is it just because it's associated with fossil fuels and hydrocarbons, and that's the way of the past when it provides us all the comfort we live in today? Is that why it's kind of being, I guess, left over a little bit?
Yeah, I think we're trying to pitch a perfect game. I think we're trying to go for perfection. And we're saying, hey, as regulators, we can get to zero. We can get to no emissions by 2036. We can't get you the power. The power is not emissions free. The power is fossil
get you
fired.
there.
But that vehicle right there is going to be this perfect zero emission vehicle, and you're going to love it.
Let's not look. Let's only look at the vehicle when it's on the shelf. Let's not look at the building process of it. Let's not look at where we're getting the materials and how we're sourcing it. Let's not look at once the vehicle's done, how we're going to recycle this battery. Let's look at this vehicle right here in its picture perfect sense of when we first buy it.
On the showroom floor, exactly.
Yes,
where we want and it's like a magic show, like David Copperfield, like whoosh, here's the perfect EV big rig. Like you say, don't look at what it took to mine all this material. Don't look at comparing that mining operation to a natural gas wellhead with minimal surface footprint, clean paying jobs, good paying jobs in the United States. We can have full transparency into the supply chain, where the gas comes from, a regulated environment to another regulated environment. We're just pitching this to people that the whole environment has to be saved by a zero emission vehicle that is super heavy, can't charge at night. If you charge at night, you might light your whole facility on fire, or you're charging on natural gas anyway. It's 4 times the cost to buy it new. So there's all these costs, and the benefit that we're really focused on is when that thing's driving, it's not emitting anything.
And that's it.
That's it.
Okay. So, let's this is a good way to wrap this up. Okay. So let's talk about kind of what do you see this, what do you see as a result from this decision, not only for the people of, let's start with the people of California. Okay. Because that's kind of the whole focal. Yeah. It's a good stage for this, but let's talk about how that's going to affect, number one, the people of California, the environment, and the people in the environment, all that stuff. But number two, let's talk about how this affects people that aren't in California, how this might affect people throughout the United States. So start off with California, then kind of pull it back if you don't mind.
Yeah, I think California, it could actually benefit because I think it will reduce commerce. I think it will drive out containers. It will drive out the volume, and by default, you will have a cleaner environment and less traffic because heavy haulers won't be able to afford coming in and out of the state. Okay. I think, and so the unintended consequence could actually benefit the main goal of reducing emissions and traffic. But broadly, I think it will make any product coming through the port of LA Long Beach, through the ports of Oakland and other ports in the state, it will be more costly to ship into this state. So I think it will be more costly for Californians to get their goods. I think people broadly across the country could be paying more for goods that have to come through our port. You know, if these size ships that can make it through here that can't go to other ports.
And these goods that we're talking about coming in, these are electronics, these are clothes, these are Amazon products, food products, everything. So this isn't just like, California avocados. These are like Apple, iPhones, whatever it is. I mean, these are shipments that kind of that you and I as a consumer purchase without even thinking about.
And you mentioned food. That's a great point. Things that aren't even coming.
I'm always thinking about food.
Well, the food grown in the Central Valley is not coming through the port, so they kind of use this electrify everything. We got to clean up around the ports, but the fact of the matter is, the San Joaquin Valley grows like 30 to 40% of the country's food also. So now if you're talking about electrifying everything that's moving that food out to the rest of the country, no doubt it's going to rise the costs for everybody across the country. There's no doubt. If your rig's 4 or 5 times more expensive, bam, that's going to get put, averaged out into the cost of every carrot. And now your carrots are going to be, $10 a bag of carrots or whatever.
Right. Right. I mean, this is, again, this is one of those things, energy facts chats. We're trying to bridge the realities of, first off, what we're playing with, the field that we're playing with the expectations, this whole net zero, did all that stuff. Don't get me wrong. Sounds great. But if you're looking at it in the real world and realistically where we're at, it's going to be extremely. I think personally, I'm not an economist or anything like that, but just knowing that the cost to move goods, the cost for importing, the cost for shipping goods around will go up. That just means I don't think the company's going to eat that chart. I think they're going to pass it along to the consumers, as they probably should. So if anything, that's just going to create higher costs for everyday goods and services.
Yeah, and the only other way around that is to subsidize it by the government. So then that's going to be higher costs for everybody's taxes to subsidize these programs.
Yeah, I'm kind of. I feel like there's a wave, and let's actually. I want to end this with kind of getting your feedback. We talked about barbershop before we kind of got on. I want to get the barbershop talk on kind of what's been going on about this. And let's do that now because I actually lost my train of thought. So, what are people kind of in the neighborhood, diners and all that stuff? What are they saying about this? Are they in agreement with this? Are they saying, or do they understand? Is there talk about the potential effect on goods coming in?
I think yes and no. People see the headlines and it's just, oh, here's another mandate. Here's another thing coming down the road, but it's 13, 14 years away. So it's not, front of mind for everybody yet. It hasn't, the expenses haven't hit yet. People are, it's almost just like, okay, what's next? What's the next thing we're going to do in 15 years to get to net zero? And sadly, I think that breeds a dangerous situation where people are just like, okay, well, that's kind of far off in the future. I don't have time to worry about that right now. I'm taking my kids to soccer practice or jujitsu, and I'm just trying to get through today with net zero whining, Yeah. So I think people are kind of lulled to sleep by the constant drumbeat of these announcements. And we're going to wake up one day and that situation will come where we say, okay, nobody plug in your fleet tonight because we don't have the power on this, August 21st, hot summer night, whatever it is.
Yeah.
The situations will arise where you're going to have issues. And I think that's when people will really start clamoring and debating it. But right now it's just kind of, I feel like it's just, people are just over these announcements.
Well, I saw something from it was actually it kind of segues into this, but it kind of doesn't. Where David Ramsden Wood said that this through the this Inflation Reduction Act and all that stuff, it's going to cost every person probably about $11,400 per year to get there. And that's kind of out of our control. It's frustrating to think about. I mean, that's money that I could probably use for my family, and I'm sure everyone else could as well. So again, I think that once the consumers start again noticing this stuff, start wanting to discuss and find out what is going on with the cost of living, not just California but everywhere else. Hopefully it's not too late by then to kind of have that energy boomerang that I think that you started your platform on. And I think through conversations like this and kind of taking a step back and looking at, okay, let's pretend we're in a world right now where that happens. What does that actually look like? What does that mean?
Right.
So if it takes an average of goods and services to go from the port to over here in 7 hours, now it's taking 12 hours, 13 hours,
right?
And it's cost a lot more to ship it. What does that mean for me? What does that mean for Mike Umbro sitting in San Diego if I'm going to the store and buying groceries? So I think it's one of those things. Once people starts pinching people's wallets, which it already has in California, and it's only continue to do that. I don't think subsidies and all that stuff is the answer to this, because you're just kind of anyway.
No, I think he's right. It's going to cost a tremendous amount of money. We're already seeing credit card debt skyrocket. People are not able to afford this inflation. Interest rates are rising. The market's down 500 points. We keep pretending we're not in a recession, but we're in a recession. Populations are declining. That's a big concern because you've got more boomers that are retiring and not working, and less people having babies that are going to be working, yet you're increasing the cost of living on everybody. So I think what it's going to mean is everybody's got to buckle down and save their money. I'm already looking at my vehicles I purchased in 2017 and 2019 is the last vehicles I'm going to purchase for the next 15 years because the cost of a new vehicle is $60,000. I've never bought a vehicle that expensive, nor will I, especially at 7% interest rate. So I think broadly, you're going to see people just pull back and say, "Hey, I gotta take care of the homestead, and I'm not buying these expensive technologies. Just not going to do it."
Well, that's going to be an interesting time. So I want to thank everyone. Do you have any final thoughts to leave us on? I know we kind of went a little bit over, but I think this is a very good discussion. I wouldn't mind kind of getting back into this once you and I do a little more research on these EV fleets and all that fun stuff. Let's maybe do our homework when we revisit this subject next time.
Yeah, and I'll dig into my LinkedIn network. Maybe we can get someone from a trucking association
That would be great.
or agriculture, a grower, a farmer, someone that can talk about how this is hitting their business. That would be really cool. So I'll try to dial that in.
If you could do that, that'd be great. I want to thank everyone out there for tuning in to Energy Facts Chats with me, JP Warren, and Mike Umbro. And you can learn more about Mike. Check out his LinkedIn, his Twitter, but also the best way to connect with him to find out what him and his group is doing out there is called the Californians for Energy and Science. And that website is, hold on, let me pull it out.
Energyandscience.com. You shouldn't have to pull it out. It's in the name, baby.
What if someone's watching this just seeing this?
I see what you're doing. What if two people are watching us right now?
Yeah. What if our wives are watching this and they're really wondering how to find us? So yeah, you can find that on the bottom, www.energyandscience.com. Again, check it out. Sign up. I've signed up. It's just a great way to stay abreast and kind of what's going on in the energy policy world that we live in today. And again, I want to thank y'all. If you enjoyed this, feel free to share it, leave a comment. We always dig reviews. It kind of helps us stay motivated. And Mike, I dig it, man. Let's try to get someone on the line to talk about what this means and what that means for their business, not just two dudes talking right now. So yeah, thank y'all for tuning in. What else you got, Mike? You want to say?
That's
send
it.
Send us goodbye.
Oh, just everybody have a great day, and let's give everybody the mandate to be happy today.
Amen to that. No, be happy for the week. Be happy till the next Energy Fact Chats come out, and that'll give you another reason to be happy for that next week after that. Right. So thank y'all for tuning in. We'll talk to y'all soon.